Okay, so the recording has started. So I would request that that everybody who are present, please write down your name and roll number and write present in the chat box. Okay, write your name, roll number, and write present in the chat box. Okay, so where were we? We are talking about our cylinder pole synchronous generator. So the assumption is, since we saw that that it has projected poles, and moreover, since it has projected poles, it has different air gaps, and since it has different air gaps, so there will be different reactances. So with the assumption we are taking on that along the d-axis the reactance is xd, along the q-axis the reactance is our xq. Okay, so obviously the current along the is the projection of current along the d-axis would be, let us take it to be id. Okay, it is id is the projection of current along the d-axis. Okay, and similarly we can take our iq also. Okay, so iq would be the projection of current along the q-axis. Okay, so let us now find out see the phasor diagram of this particular cylinder pole synchronous generator. So this is the phasor diagram of a cylinder pole synchronous generator. Obviously, since I'm using the tablet, the drawing may not be exact, but I hope you can understand. Okay, this is the q-axis. Okay, so this is the voltage actually V. Okay, this is our J I dxd, and this is our J IQ xq, and this is our E actually. It's a no load EMF, and this is V. Then the current is lagging the voltage. This is I. Okay, and obviously then this angle is our theta, and this angle is our delta, and this angle together, this two is our beta. Okay, so the so the current I has its projection on the q-axis and along the d-axis. Along the d-axis it is id, and along the q-axis it is our iq. Okay, so what are the things can we infer from this particular figure? If you see, so number one we can say that the no load voltage EF is equal to how much? Is equal to terminal voltage V plus J into I do into XD plus J into IQ into XQ. That is number one. Number two, again what we can say? Again what we can say is that EF is equal to V into cos delta, correct? We can say EF equal to V into cos delta plus J IDXD, correct? Okay, again we can say that V sine delta, okay, V sine delta is equal to ID into XQ. Okay, ID into XQ we can say. Okay, sorry, not ID, it would be IQ into XQ. Okay, so it is IQ into XQ. Okay, again from the phasor diagram what we can say also, if you have what we can say is that IQ equal to I cos beta. Okay, and ID is equal to I sine beta. Okay, so from these expressions what we can write, ID equal to EF minus V cos delta by XD, and from this expression we can write IQ equal to V sine delta by XQ. Okay, so what we can find out, so what is our active power equation? So if you recollect, we know that our active power equation is V equal to how much? Active power P equal to V I cos phi. Okay, that is our in this case let me write it as our cos theta here. Okay, cos theta. So what we can write this expression? So this expression can be written as Vi cos how much? Beta minus delta, correct? So we can write here it as cos beta minus delta. So then this expression can be expanded into, if you see, it can we can write Vi, it will be cos beta cos delta plus sine beta sine delta, and then we can solve it to get v into c. I into cos beta will be giving means I c into cos beta would be giving me what? Would be giving me I into cos beta would be giving me iq. Similarly, I into sine beta would be giving me id. So taking these expressions into account, we can write v into iq cos delta plus id sine delta. Okay. So what we can write again? So as you can see that we can write iq as what? Iq can witness v sine delta by xq, and id can witness ef minus v cos delta by xd. Okay. So putting that again and multiplying by v, what we can write? We can write the expression of ef v by xd sine delta plus we will be getting v square by 2 1 by xq minus 1 by xd into sine 2 delta. Okay, I hope you can understand. Okay, so from this expression what we are getting, that from this expression we can actually draw the power angle curve for our cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. So let us draw the figure. So this is the typical figure for our cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, so this is the electrical power output. So see, this is the first part. So this part is known as our excitation power. Okay, this part is known as our excitation power. What is the expression? See, ef into v by xd into sine delta. So this expression is more or less similar to the expression that we have obtained for our cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, where p was equal to ef into v by xs into sine delta. Okay, so if this is our excitation power, so this is our excitation power. Okay, this is our excitation power. Excitation power equal to ef v by xd sine delta. Okay, what is delta? It is the load angle or the torque angle. Okay, so at 90 degree. So as you can see, what we have here, we have another term which is the other term having a double frequency component 2 delta. Okay, so this power is known as our reluctance power. Okay, this power is known as our reluctance power, which is equal to v square by 2 1 by xq minus 1 by xd into sine 2 delta. So this power is our reluctance power. So so what is the resultant of these two? So as you can see, the resultant of these two is something like this. Okay. Okay, this would be the resultant power, and see the maximum power. See, the maximum power that is obtained for this cylindrical rotor synchronous generator is quite high compared to our excitation power. Okay, and obviously this angle is our delta value here. Okay, so as you can see that what we are seeing, we are getting accustomed with another term which is known as our reluctance power. So what is this reluctance power? So this reluctance power is actually nothing but it depends upon the saliency. What is the equation? The reluctance power equation is v square by 2 1 by xq minus 1 by xd into sine 2 delta. Okay, so number one, we can say it depends upon the saliency of the rotor, depends on the saliency, which is defined by the factor 1 by xq minus 1 by xd. Okay, and obviously the saliency will be disappearing for a cylindrical rotor because in a cylindrical rotor our xd and xq are the same. Okay, and please remember that this reluctance power, it is of the order of 10% to 20% of the excitation power. Okay, means it's a very small quantity of the power that we are getting. Okay, so it is of the order of 10% to 20% of the excitation power. Hence, it is usually neglected in the steady state stability studies. Okay, hence it is usually neglected in the steady state stability studies. Okay, So what we are seeing from this particular expression, from this particular curve of a cylindrical rotor synchronous generator, that like the cylindrical rotor synchronous generator, we can also state that if this is the maximum point, so this portion is our unstable portion of the generator, and here it is the stable region of the generator. Okay, or means unstable portion of the p delta curve, and this is the stable region of the p delta curve. Okay, so as you can see that the peak power that is occurring for a cylindrical rotor synchronous, means for a cylinder pole rotor synchronous generator, is occurring at a value of delta which is much less than 90°. Okay, so we can say that so we can say that the cylinder pole rotor synchronous generator is more stiff than our cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, we can say that it is more stiff than the cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, so how we can say that it is more stiff? We can say that it is more stiff in the sense that the delta is not allowed to more means that the delta is not allowed to move freely. Okay, that the delta is not allowed to move freely. Okay, but it is inherently more stable than the cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, that is, it is inherently more stable than the cylindrical rotor synchronous generator, because see the maximum value of Pmax, it is quite high compared to this acceleration power. The Pmax value is quite high, means it can cater more amount of electrical power. Okay, but what is happening, but the problem with it is that means it is more stiff, means the delta is not allowed to move freely. Means if you have recollected from the previous class, we said that for a cylindrical rotor synchronous generator, the delta maximum could be at around 90°, but here it is not the case. Okay, here the maximum value is coming at a very much at a very much less value of delta. Okay, so the cylinder machine is stiffer in the sense that the delta is not allowed to move freely. Okay, so how can we actually measure the stiffness of a particular machine? So it is actually so the stiffness of a particular machine is actually defined by a term which is known as our synchronizing power coefficient. Okay, it is known as our synchronizing power coefficient. Okay, coefficient, or electrical stiffness of a synchronous machine, or electrical stiffness of a synchronous machine. Okay, so what is it is means how we can see it mathematically or analytically. It is mathematical analysis is given by this expression, that is dp by d delta. Okay, so this dp by d delta is nothing but the differential power increase obtained per differential load angle increase. Okay, differential power increase obtained per differential load angle increase. Okay, per differential load angle increase. Okay, so what did this measure? It measures the stability of the system, measures the stability of a system. How it is measuring? So if dp by d delta is greater than, if dp by d delta is greater than 0, the synchronizing coefficient, the synchronizing power coefficient, or the synchronizing coefficient is positive. Okay, and dp by d delta is equal to 0, means steady state stability limit is reached. Okay, and dp by d delta less than 0 means system is unstable. Okay, system is unstable. Hence, for this cylinder pole rotor synchronous generator, we get more power for less delta, though the stable region is decreased. Okay, though the stable region is decreased. So dp by d delta is greater than 0 means we are in this portion of the curve. When dp by d delta is less than 0, then means we are in this portion of the curve. Okay, I'm again repeating, dp by d delta is greater than 0, we are in this portion of the curve. dp by d delta is less than 0, we are in this portion of the curve. Okay, and if dp by delta is equal to 0, then we are at this peak position. Okay, that is the, and this limit is the steady state stable limit that can be obtained from a particular generator. Okay, I hope it is clear up to here. Any questions till now? Any questions till now? Hello, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so if there is no questions, let us try to solve this particular problem. As you can see, what it is written, a turbo generator is feeding, a turbo generator means a cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, so please remember the names. Okay, so if I say a hydro generator, what is a hydro generator? It is a cylindrical rotor synchronous generator. Okay, so please remember the terms. Okay, so a turbo generator feeds 0.25 per unit power to infinite bus at 1 per unit voltage. The acceleration voltage is 1.5 per unit and synchronous reactance is given as 1 per unit. Calculate the load angle and reactive power output of the generator first, and then second is calculate the changes in active and reactive it's 0.25 per unit power to infinite bus at 1 per unit voltage. Okay, so means it is stated that Vt is equal to how much? 1 per unit. Okay, because the cylindrical rotor, we are assuming that the cylindrical rotor is connected to an infinite bus, correct? Something like this. So P is equal to 0.25 per unit, Vt is given as 1 per unit. Our excitation voltage means EF is given as how much? 1.5 per unit. And the synchronous reactance XS is given as how much? It's given as our 1 per unit also. Okay, so we have to find out calculate the load angle and the reactive power output of the generator. So to find out the load angle and the reactive power output of the generator, which equation will be using? We have calculated the equation in the previous classes also, EF by V by XS sine delta, correct? So from this expression we are getting the value of delta. What is the value of delta? Just tell me, calculate it and tell me. And similarly we have to find out the reactive power output. So the reactive power output will be applying the value of delta and the other values also, because the expression is Vt, okay, this terminal voltage by XS into EF cos delta minus Vt. No, EF cos delta minus Vt. This was the expression for reactive power. So tell me the values. Tell me the value of delta, tell me the value of reactive power. See, all the values are in per unit. So obviously the delta value will be coming in degrees, but the reactive power output will be coming in per units. Okay, just tell me the values.
9.59 degree.
Okay, so 9.5 means around 9.6 degrees, correct? So 9.6 degree. Okay, what about the reactive power output? What about the reactive power output? How much it is coming?
Point 0.48 pu.
0.48. Okay, so this is the per unit value of the reactive power output. Now let us go back to our previous question, and first we'll be talking about A, and then our problem will be solving the B portion. Okay, so what is the question that has been asked? It is written, calculate the changes in active and reactive power if number one, the turbine valve opening is increased, corresponding to 100% increase in turbine torque, keeping the excitation constant. So from this underlying question, one thing is clear, that we are considering that there is no loss in the generator. Okay, since nothing has been written about the losses in the generator, so we are considering that it is a loss-free generator. Okay, so as we are saying that the turbine torque is increased by 100%, that means that the active power output will also be increasing by the same amount, correct? As if the turbine torque output is increased by 100%, means the active power output will also increase by how much? 100%. So then the new value of active power output would be how much? What is the new value of active power output? It is how much? So previously it was only 0.25. No. So the new value of active power output would be 0.5, correct? Because it has increased by 100%. So 0.5 per unit, and the other values are also same. So what is the new value of delta then? And similarly, we have to find out the new value of Q also. Yes. What is the new value of delta? What is the new value of Q? Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, calculate it fast.
Delta will become 19.47 degree.
Okay, so around 19.5 degrees. And what is Q new?
0.414.
0.414. Okay, the active per unit. So what is the percentage change? As you can see, what is the percentage change in the reactive power? Percentage change in Q is how much? What is the percentage change? It is 0.414 minus 0.48 by 0.48. Right? Minus 0.414 minus 0.48 by 4.8. What is the percentage? It is minus how much? 14 point something, I think it should be coming. What is the percentage in Q?
13.75.
Okay, 13.75. Okay, so you can very well imagine that. See the change in Q actually here. Okay. Okay. Next, now let's get back to the other half of the question. What was the other half? It was said that the turbine valve opening is kept constant at the initial value. Okay, so the turbine output is around our 0.25 per unit only, but the excitation is increased by 20%. So if the excitation is increased, then what will happen? So if the excitation is increased, means the excitation is increased by how much? By 20%. Means it would be around means 1.5 into 1.2. Okay, so the EF is around how much? Then the EF would be increased by 20%, means EF would be becoming 1.5 into 1.2. Okay, with this and keeping in mind that P is again the previous value, that is 0.25 per unit, find the new value of delta and find the new value of Q, and then find the percentage change in Q. Tell me the values. Yes, what is the value of delta?
That will become
7.98.
8 degree. 7.98.
Means 7.99. Okay, so around 8 degrees. Okay, what about Q new?
0.782.
0.78 per unit. What about percentage change? More than 60%, I think.
62.9.
Okay, and 63%. Okay, so can you see the result from this? Can you infer one thing? What can we infer? See, in our previous class, we stated one thing. I'm harping on this point again and again. We stated that P and delta are strongly coupled. No, P and delta are strongly coupled, and we say that reactive power and voltage is strongly coupled. Okay, and P and voltage is weakly coupled, and Q and delta are weakly coupled. See, in the first condition, what is happening? So in the first condition, keeping the excitation constant, we are increasing the turbine valve, means we are increasing the active power output, correct? we are increasing the active power output. So what is the active power output now? It is around means 100% increase in turbine torque output is there. So means 100% increase in the turbine in the active power output. Keeping in mind that we have considered that it's a lossless generator, means there is no losses in the generator. So in that case, the change in the active power output is reflected in the our delta value only. See, the delta was how much? 9.6, but now the delta value is changed to huge. A change in delta value has occurred. It is around 19.5. So what we can say that the active power output and the load angle are strongly coupled, whereas the change in the reactive power, see, it is a meager minus 13.75%. Okay, so so the change in the reactive power is not so much compared to the previous value. Okay, but when the excitation is varied, keeping the turbine valve value at the previous condition, means the active power is kept constant and the excitation is varied by around 20%, then what we are seeing, see the change in the delta value. Here the delta value change is very nominal at around 8 degree, but change in the reactive power output, see, it is around see, there's a huge change around 63%. So again, it is iterating the same fact that we have been harping upon, that reactive power, if we have to change the reactive power, we have to change the voltage and vice versa. Similarly, if we are to change the active power output, we have to change the load angle and vice versa. Understood? Yes?
Yes.
Understood? Any questions till now? Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay. So now what we'll be doing is that we'll be jumping into another part, a very important part, which is our load frequency and automatic generation control. Okay. So in the load frequency and automatic generation control, what I can do one thing. Actually, I have the figure here. Yes, load frequency and automatic generation control. Okay. So till now, what we have understood that the reactive power means the active power demand and the means the active power demand and the reactive power demand are never steady. Okay, they are changing all the time. So since they are changing all the time, so the steam input to the turbo generator or the water input to the hydro generators have to be continuously regulated to match the active power demand. If it is not matched, then what will happen? Then the machine speed will vary. So if the machine speed is varying, so basically means that the frequency is also varying. Okay, and we have studied that in the previous class, that how much the means why the frequency we need, that the frequency needs to be kept constant. Okay, so what is the maximum permissible change in power frequency? It is around it is actually written wrong. It is not 0.5 means it is not plus minus 2.5 hertz. It is now the frequency margin is very less. It is around 49.9 to 50.0 hertz. Okay, nowadays the frequency variation in India is very strict. It is around 49.9 to 50.05 hertz. So you can very well imagine the means the frequency has to be kept constant within a very narrow margin. Okay, similarly, when you're talking about the excitation of the generators, okay, so the excitation of generators must be continuously regulated to match the reactive power demand, okay, of the load. Okay, so otherwise what will happen, that if the reactive power demand is varying, so there may be a chance that the voltages at the various buses may go beyond the permissible limits. Okay, so what is happening, so in modern large integrated power systems, this type of manual regulation is actually not a very feasible option, and therefore we are going for automatic generation and voltage regulation equipments, and these automatic generation and voltage regulation equipments are installed on each generator. Okay, so this is the typical figure of a schematic of load frequency and excitation voltage regulators. Now as you can see, what we have the turbine and the generator is connected through a shaft. There we have the steam valve controller, and steam valve is controller, its input is coming from the frequency sensor on the comparator. Okay, similarly we have the excitation controller in the right hand side. We have the voltage sensor and comparator. Okay, the voltage sensor comparator means that is also being means that output is also controlled by the acceleration controller. Okay, so these controllers that we are seeing here, acceleration controller or the steam valve controller, okay, so these controllers are set for a particular operating condition. Please remember this. Okay, so these controllers are set for a particular operating condition, and they take care of very small changes in load demand without the frequency and voltage exceeding the prescribed limits. I'm again repeating, the controllers are set for a particular operating condition and they take care of small changes in load demand without the frequency and voltage exceeding the prescribed limits. Okay, so what happens that with the passage of time, as the change in the load demand becomes very large, the controllers may be reset either manually or automatically. Okay, either manually or automatically. Okay, so as you can see that okay, you can now argue that since this acceleration controller or so in the right hand side we have our voltage means automatic voltage regulator, actually, which we say AVR. Okay, that is the automatic voltage regulator, and the left hand side we have our load frequency controller. So these two are operating on the generator itself, but still we are being able to analyze them separately. Okay, so means the question that should have come into into your mind that that are these two means interactive, means are they interacting among themselves? The answer is that the load frequency and the acceleration voltage controller are non-interactive for small changes in load. Okay, are non-interactive for small changes in load and can be modeled and analyzed independently. Okay, why again then question erupts that why we are saying that they can be modeled and analyzed independently. Okay, why? Because we know again the one thing, that active power is strongly coupled with delta and weakly coupled with our voltage, and similarly the reactive power is strongly coupled with voltage, but means this reactive power is strongly coupled with voltage but weakly coupled with our delta. So for very small changes in our load changes, actually they can be these two things, that is the excitation voltage controller and the load frequency controller, can be modeled and analyzed independently. You may also ask that, okay, sir, see the transients means this is a mechanical system, this is an electrical system, correct? So the transients in excitation voltage controller, can it affect the means transients in this portion can affect the other portion? The answer is again is no. Why? Because the transients in excitation voltage controller vanishes much faster and do not affect the dynamics of the power frequency controller. Okay, now the question this question is a very common question that is being asked in interviews, that why these two can be modeled separately. Okay, so the question is that why the transients in acceleration voltage controller is means does not affect the load frequency controller. The answer is that in the left hand side, okay, in the left hand side what we have, the power frequency control or the load frequency control, and in the right hand side we have our acceleration voltage control. So in the right hand side, that is in the acceleration voltage control, the excitation voltage control is actually very fast acting. Okay, the excitation voltage control is fast acting. Okay, is fast acting with the major time constant, with the major time constant being the generator field. Okay, let this be our tau 1. Okay, similarly for the power frequency controller portion, for the power frequency control portion, okay, is slow acting. Okay, the power frequency control is portion slow acting, is slow acting, is major time constant, that is our tau2, being the turbine and generator moment of inertia. Okay, so as you can see, that is the tau2 is greater than tau1. Since the time constant, since this is the time constant is a mechanical time constant, this electrical time constant. Okay, so what we can say that the transients, okay, in excitation voltage control, transients in excitation voltage control vanishes much faster and does not affect the dynamics of power frequency control. Okay, so when we're talking about these load changes, actually, okay, so these load changes, when we're talking about these load changes, please remember that these load changes can be of two types. Okay, these changes in load, these changes in load demand can be of two types. What are the two types? Number one, it may be slow varying changes in mean demand, okay, or it may be fast random variations. It may be fast random variations around the mean. So if we consider this as our mean demand, so this mean demand can be changing, so that is our slow varying changes, whereas there may be fast random variations around the mean. So around the mean there may be fast random variations. Please remember that the regulators that we have talked about are specifically designed to be insensitive to this fast random changes. Okay, the regulators are designed to be insensitive to these fast random changes. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, the system would be prone to hunting, resulting in excessive wear and tear of the rotating machines and the control equipments. Okay, I hope I have. Yes, any questions till now? Till now, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so the next is very important, which is the load frequency control portion. We are entering the load frequency control portion now. Okay, so as you can see, what we have here. So in the left hand side, we have the speed changer, which is actually giving the command, that is we want to raise or open the power. We have, this is the speed governor, also known as a fly ball speed governor. So whenever the synchronous generator is rotating at synchronous speed, so the speed governor will also rotating at the synchronous speed, means the fly balls. So whenever the speed is increasing, means there is more amount of frequency, so the fly balls will expand, and that point B in the linkage arm will be brought downwards. Okay, similarly, when the speed is below the synchronous speed, that means more amount of steam has to be entered into the system. It has to be entered into the turbine, so that the turbine rotates more. There is more amount of turbine torque, so that the electrical power output increases. Because of that, because of that, whenever the speed falls below the synchronous speed, the flyballs will be contracting and the point B would be moving upwards. Okay, so as you can see, we have all these linkage points. We have C, we get linkage point D. See, the linkage point D is actually connected with the pallet valve and with the high pressure oil. So whenever the linkage valve D is going upwards, it means if the point D is going upwards, means the high pressure oil is entering this main piston valve, from this first orifice. And whenever this linkage point D is going downwards, means the means the high pressure oil that is in the main piston, okay, or we can say the high pressure oil actually then will be going into the main piston from this orifice, okay, from the other half, from the second orifice or the bottom orifice, okay. So likewise, if this the high pressure oil is entering into this system, then it is actually moving this main piston. If the main piston is moving, then it is actually closing this steam valve, and the steam valve is if the main piston, if high pressure oil is coming from this side, you can just imagine if high pressure oil coming from this side, then it is exerting pressure here, the main piston is going down, so the steam valve is also going down. That means more amount of steam is being allowed to the turbine. Similarly, what we can say, so similarly we can say that if the linkage point B is going downwards, means high pressure oil is entering from this side, okay, from this side, so it is exerting pressure at this side of the piston, so the piston, so the piston will be moving upwards, means the turbine valve will be closing, means it will means less amount of steam would be going to the turbine, okay. So this is how the steam turbine is actually being controlled, okay. So let us start with how the steam is actually being controlled. We can just say that so whenever a raise command is given, raise command means we want more amount of steam to be entered into the particular system, okay. So whenever we whenever we want more amount of steam is being allowed to the system, okay. So suppose we have given a raise power command, okay, that is our this speed changer is moved downwards. If that is the case, so the linkage point A is moving downwards by a small distance, okay. Please remember one thing, that all downward motion is taken to be positive, okay. All the downward motion is taken to be positive, okay. Downward motion of the linkage points is considered to be positive. Downward motion is considered as positive, okay. So whenever a power increase command is given, so what is happening, that the point A, as you can see, the linkage point A is moving downwards, okay, and the movement will be proportional to the command delta PC that is being given at the speed changer, okay. So with B remaining fixed, point B remaining fixed, the movement of this linkage point A will be causing a small position changes of the linkage point delta XC and the delta XD, okay, at points C and D, okay. So as the oil, as you can see, that as the point A is going downwards, C moving upwards, no, C is moving upwards with B remaining fixed. So as A is going downwards, B point is fixed, and then C will be moving outward. If the C is moving outward, means it is going up, so this point D will also be going up along with it, okay. So as the point D will be going up, so oil will be flowing into this hydraulic chamber, okay. So if oil is flowing into this hydraulic chamber, then what will happen, then the steam valve, that is our linkage point E, will be moving downwards, okay. The steam valve will be moving downwards by a small distance, say delta XE, okay, resulting in an increased turbine torque, and obviously there will be consequently increase in our generator output. So let us say that the change in the generator output is delta PG, okay. So this increased power output will cause momentarily a surplus or accelerating power in the system, okay. So if the system is if this generator is connected to an infinite bus, then the increased generator power will not noticeably affect the speed or the frequency. However, if the system is a finite system, okay, means is of a finite size, then the speed and frequency will experience a slight increase in our frequency. So if there is a slight increase in the frequency, that will cause the linkage point B to move downward, okay. That will cause the linkage point B to move downward proportional to the change in the frequency. So if the slight increase in frequency is is delta f, then the point B or the linkage point B will be moving downward a small distance, say delta xb, proportional to the delta f. Okay, so this whole system I think you can understand, and this way we will be setting at a new position. Okay, and in this way we will be setting at a new position in the in this particular system. Yes, have I have to explain this thing again, or you have understood? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you please explain when the pistol will move downward and when the point E will move upward?
I'm again repeating, the point A will is moving downward. The point A is moving downward when we have given a change, when we have given a raise command in this speed changer position. Okay, that answers your first question. Second question is when the point B will be moved. Point B would be moving when there is a change in the frequency. So these fly balls are rotating, this is known as our fly ball speed governor. They are rotating synchronously with respect to our synchronous speed. So if the synchronous speed of the generator means if the speed is more, means what? If the speed is more means frequency is more, then these fly balls will expand. Then these fly balls will expand, this point B will be moving downwards, and because of the linkage mechanism, I think you can understand that this point D will also be going downwards. If so, if point B is going downwards, keeping A constant, if point B is going downwards, then C is also going downward. C is also going downward means D is also going downward. If D is also going downward, means this high pressure oil is entering from this orifice. No, it is entering from this orifice and will be moving the piston upwards. So that it so if this main piston is moving outwards, means the steam turbine valve will be closing, or the steam valve will be closing. If the steam valve is closing, means less amount of steam to the turbine, so the speed of the turbine will decrease, so the speed will be decreasing. Understood? Similarly, when the speed is less, then what will happen? If the speed is less than the synchronous speed, then the fly balls would contract. Okay, so the fly balls will contract, and this point B will be moving upwards. This point B will be moving upwards then. Understood? And the same mechanism, and by the same mechanism, we'll be seeing that if it is moving upwards, C is moving upwards. C is moving upwards means D is moving upwards. D is moving upwards means high pressure oil will be entering from the top orifice. It will be exerting pressure on the main piston, so that this valve opens, and more amount of steam is being allowed to the turbine, means the frequency means more amount of steam to the turbine, means the turbine is shaft rotating more, means the speed of the generator would be increasing, means the frequency would be increasing. I hope you have understood now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the, so now what we can see is that we have to model this total thing actually. Okay, so what is the purpose of me saying on and on what we have to do? So the thing that we have to do is that we have to model this particular load frequency position. Okay, so let us try to model it one by one. Okay, let me open a new slide. Yes, so as you can see that the change in position A. Okay, so the change in position A is due to the power increase command that is given at the speed changer. Okay, so let the power increase command that is given at the speed changer be represented as delta PC. This is the increase command or the power increase command that has been given. Okay, at the speed changer position. Okay, so there is a change in our position of A. So the position of A is given as our delta XA, which is the change in position A. Okay, so please remember that all the downward motion is considered as positive. Okay, we'll be harping on this point. Okay, now as you can see that the point in is this linkage point C is changing, is changing due to the two factors. Number one, that is the upward movement of this linkage point C is due to the change in the speed changer position. So when the speed changer position is changing, that is our delta XA is changing, then this point linkage point C is going upwards, keeping B constant. Correct? Similarly, as the speed is increasing, what I said, that point B would be going downwards. Okay, So as the speed is increasing, point B is going downward. So the consequent movement of B with A remaining fixed at delta XA is K1 into delta F. Okay. So means the position B is proportional to the change in the frequency, right? So the change in point C can be dictated by two factors, that is delta XC can be written as our K1 into sorry, okay, it would be K1 into delta F minus K2 into delta PC. Okay, this K2 into delta PC is nothing but the change in delta XA. Okay, again, how can we define the movement of D? See, we saw that the movement of D is contributed by both C and E. Okay, that's the that the movement of D is the amount by which actually the pilot valve opens. Okay, the movement of D is the amount by which the pilot valve opens. Okay, so it is contributed by our delta XC and delta XC and delta XE. So we can write here that delta XD is equal to K3 into delta XC plus K4 into delta XE. Okay, what is K1, K2, K3, K4? These are all the proportionality constants. Okay, and it depends upon these linkage arms actually. Okay, so as you can see that the movement of D is depending upon its sign, means depending upon its movement, it's opening one of the ports of the pilot valve, and thereby it is opening the position of our XE. So, so as you can see that the volume of oil that is being admitted to this particular main cylinder is proportional to the time integral of delta XD. Okay, I'm again repeating that the volume of oil admitted to this cylinder is proportional to the time integral of delta XD. So, but we can say that delta XE can be represented as our minus K5 integral of 0 to K delta XD into dt. Okay, so this K5 is actually a constant which depends upon the orifice and the cylinder geometry and the fluid pressure. Okay, and this negative sign is there because if you have observed carefully that the movement of D causes upward, means the downward movement of D causes upward movement of E. Okay, downward movement of D causes upward movement of E, and so on. Okay, so now we have got these expressions. Now what we can find is actually we can find that since we have obtained these expressions, so what we can do is that we can apply the Laplace transforms into these expressions. Okay, we can apply Laplace transforms to these expressions. So by applying Laplace transforms, what we are getting? So applying Laplace transforms, we get what we're getting. From where to where we are applying Laplace transforms? To these equations. Okay, so what is what we are getting? So we are getting delta XCS, okay, is equal to how much? K1 into delta Fs minus K2 into delta PCS. Okay, delta XDS is equal to K3 delta XCS plus K4 delta XCS, and delta XES is equal to how much? Is equal to minus K5 delta XDS by S. Correct? Okay. So what we have to do is that we have to eliminate the variables delta XC and delta XD. Okay. So what we can say to eliminate them? So we can say that delta XD is equal to how much? Delta XD is equal to minus S into delta XCS by K5.
Yes, sir.
delta x ds, we get, okay, what we are getting, delta xcs is equal to k3 k2 delta pcs minus k3 k1 delta fs by k4 into 1 plus s by k5 k4. Okay, so if we solve this, what is the expression that we'll be getting? We'll be getting kg, very important, kg by 1 plus stg delta pcs minus delta fs by r. Okay, so this is our delta xcs. So what we are getting, where this kg is equal to k2 k3 by k4, this is our governor gain. We have our tg, which is equal to how much then? Equal to 1 by k5 k4 is our governor time constant. Okay, and what we have, r. What is r? R equal to nothing but it is k2 by k1. Okay, so it is our governor regulation. Okay, I hope it is clear till now. Till now it is clear. So as you can see that from this expression, what we are getting is we are getting the governor transfer function. Correct? We are obtaining the governor transfer function. So how can we write the governor transfer function as? So we can write it in this way. So this particular expression, this particular whole thing can be expressed as in this way. The block diagram of the load frequency control system will be something like this. Okay, so this kg by stg, this is the governor transfer function. Okay, so please remember then, if you recollect, so first of all we have this load frequency controller which is controlling the entry of what? Entry of steam into the turbine. No, so the next in line should be the turbine. Correct? The next in line should be the turbine. So the turbine is represented. So the turbine is represented by a single transfer function. How? So this is the input, our delta PCS, the speed changer position. This is our kg by 1 plus stg. Okay, this is our delta xcs, and the input of this is going into our kt by 1 plus stt. Okay, so this is the turbine time constant, and the turbine output will be obviously our delta pg, that is our generator output. No, turbine is controlling the our turbine torque is controlling the speed of the generator. Okay, so kt is our turbine time constant, tt is the means kt is the turbine gain, tt is the turbine time constant, and this is our turbine transfer function. Okay, so this is our turbine transfer function. Please remember that the turbine that we have considered is that it is not a reheater. Okay, so reheater is not considered. So if a reheat type turbine is considered, so if a reheat type turbine is considered, okay, is considered, then the expression would be something like this. That is, GTS would be equal to delta PGS by delta XCS would be equal to actually it would have been equal to KT by 1 plus SKR TR by 1 plus STT by 1 plus STR, where KR and TR is because is the reheat type turbine if we are considering. Okay, that is the reheater part, and the TT in this case would have been from 0.2 to 2 seconds. Okay, so see, we have partly able to draw our load frequency control, where we have drawn the our total control, how the frequency is being controlled here, and we are being able to mathematically deduce it with respect to our turbine also. Okay, the next in line to complete this block diagram should be our how we are representing the generator and load. Okay, how we are representing the generator and load. Okay, so let us do that one, and then we'll be finishing our class. Okay, so now the next question is that how to represent, that is, our generator and load. Okay, so in the previous slide, what we have seen that we are representing it as delta PG. This is nothing but the output of the turbine, that is the increased or the increasing power output. Okay, increasing power output. So when we are representing the generator and the load, we can say that we are saying delta PG is equal to nothing but increasing power output. Okay, increasing power output. Okay, and delta PD then would be equal to increasing power demand. Okay, increasing power demand. Okay, so what we are considering, so we are considering that delta PG is greater than delta PD. What can we infer from this? That if delta PG is greater than delta PD, then there is increase in power output to the generator turbine system. So if there is an increase in the power output of the generator turbine system, means there is an increase in frequency. Okay, so this increase in power, okay, input to the system can be accounted for in two ways. Okay, what are the ways? So let us see. So it is delta PG minus delta PD can be represented as d by dt of WKE plus del PD by del F into delta F. Okay, del PD by del F by into delta F. So let us talk about what are the each of them. Okay, so the first portion, that is d by dt of WKE, is nothing but this is the rate of increase of stored kinetic energy of the generator. Okay, it is the rate of increase of stored kinetic energy of the generator. So let us first model this one, then we'll be talking about the other half. What about what do you mean by the other half? Okay, so when we're talking about the first one, that is our, what we said, rate of increase of stored kinetic energy in the generator rotor actually. Okay, rate of increase of kinetic energy in the generator rotor. Okay, so the stored kinetic energy in generator rotor is given as, let it be given as W naught KE, okay, is equal to H into PR at the megawatt second. What is H? Where this H is the nothing but the inertia constant, okay, and it is in seconds, and PR is the obviously the machine rating in MVA. Okay, so this may be in MVA and this may be in seconds. So this is megawatt seconds. Okay. Now what we know that the kinetic energy is proportional to the speed, correct? Means half mv square. So kinetic energy is proportional to the speed square. So if it is proportional to the speed square, so we can say that it is proportional to the frequency square, correct? So if kinetic energy is proportional to speed square, so it can be said to be proportional to the frequency square. Okay. So if f naught we treated as our rated frequency, if f naught is our rated frequency, then f naught plus delta f can be treated as our new frequency. But delta f is the change in frequency, correct? So at new frequency, the new kinetic energy would be, so at new frequency, the kinetic energy is how much? It would be W KE equal to W naught KE into F naught plus delta F by F naught whole square. Is not it? Yes? Can we write it? Can we write it? Or not?
Yes.
Yes? Hello? Okay. Okay, we can write it. Correct. Now what we're doing, we are to find the d by dt of WK, correct? So we are finding the d by dt of WK. So so d by dt of this W or the new kinetic energy is equal to d by dt of W naught KE into 1 plus 2 into delta F by F naught plus delta F by F naught whole square. Okay, we can write this one. And since the delta F value is very small, okay, and since the delta F value is very small, so it can be neglected. See, this delta F is very small. So this delta F by F naught can be neglected. Okay, but this delta F by F naught whole square can be neglected. So if you are neglecting that, why? Because F naught is very small. Okay. So what we can say that d by dt of WKE is equal to d by dt of W naught KE into 1 plus 2 delta F by F naught. Okay. Correct. So this would be equal to 2 into W naught KE by F naught into d by dt of delta F. Okay. So this can be written as 2 into HPR by F naught d by dt of delta F. Understood? So the expression that we are getting is, this is the expression that we are getting, that is d by dt of WKE is equal to 2HPR by F naught d by dt of delta F. Okay, that is the first half. Second half ki boleche? Second half C. C is written as delta PD by del F into delta F. Okay, so what is this? Delta F by, what is this? Delta F by means delta PD by del F. Okay, this delta PD by del F, delta PD by del F, this is represented by a term which is known as our B, which is known as our load damping. Okay, now very carefully listen what I am saying. What can you understand by load damping? So in a typical power system, most of the loads that we have are all motor loads, correct? So with the increase in frequency, what will happen? So with the increase in frequency, the load will also be consuming more power. Okay, So if the loads would not have taken more power, then the frequency would have increased, correct? Hence, it can be said that these loads are actually preventing further increase in frequency, and hence this term load damping is coming into play. Understood what I have said, or shall I repeat again? হ্যালো, আন্ডারস্টুড? ওকে, তার মানে ওই লোডগুলো যদি না থাকতো তাহলে কিন্তু ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি আমার কিন্তু বাড়তেই থাকতো, কারেক্ট? সেটাকে কিন্তু আমি অ্যাভয়েড করছি, মানে সেটাই অ্যাভয়েডেড হচ্ছে by the use of this term, which is our load damping. Okay, so what we can consider that this rate of change of frequency, okay, or sorry, rate of change of load, not frequency, rate of change of load with respect to frequency, rate of change of load with respect to frequency, okay, can be regarded as nearly constant. Okay, nearly constant for small changes in frequency delta f, and can be expressed as del PD by del f into delta f, which is nothing but B into delta f. Okay, so the coming back to the, if we are coming back to the previous equation, then just wait, let me prepare some more slides. Okay, so the coming back to this expression, then, so what we can write, so del Pg minus del Pd is equal to, so d by dt of W Ke can be written as 2h Pr by f naught into d by dt of delta f, and this del Pd by del f into delta f, that is written as our how much? B into delta f, correct? So what we are writing, so we can write delta Pg minus del Pd is equal to 2h Pr by f naught d by dt of delta f plus B into delta f, where the units are, this is in megawatt, this also is in megawatt, this whole thing is in megawatt, B is in, as you can see, it is del Pd by del f, so it is megawatt per hertz, and this del f is also is in hertz. Okay, so how we can, so in per unit values, in per unit quantities, or in per unit values, how we can write, so we are dividing throughout by PR, okay, dividing by the generator rating PR throughout, so we are getting, so now this del Pg is nothing but the per unit value now. Okay, so in per unit values, so this del Pg is nothing but the per unit value, so delta Pg by PR is giving me this delta Pg per unit. Okay, I'm not writing the per unit, I think you can understand. So del Pg minus del Pd would be equal to 2h by f naught d by dt of delta f and plus B. Please remember this B is again per unit megawatt, means per unit value per hertz, okay, into delta f. Okay, so now what we can take, we can take the Laplace transforms on both sides. So taking Laplace transforms on both sides, what we are getting delta PGS minus delta PDS is equal to 2h f naught SFS, okay, S delta Fs plus B delta Fs. Okay, so if we take delta Fs common, so we are getting the expression that delta Fs is equal to how much? Is equal to 1 by B delta PGS minus delta PDS. Okay, by, we can write 1 plus 2h by F naught B into S. Correct? We can write it. Okay, if that is the thing, then what we can say? We can say that delta Fs, we can say delta Fs is equal to Kps into 1 plus STPS to delta PGS minus delta PDS. Okay, what is this Kps? Where this Kps is nothing but 1 by B, which is the power system gain, and this TPS is equal to 2H by F naught B is equal to the power system time constant. Okay, so how can we write the complete the block diagram now? So the now what we are getting? So if this was our speed changer, okay, so enter was how? Delta PCS kg by 1 plus STG. Okay, then what we had? Our KT by 1 plus STT. Okay, then what we had? This is our delta PDS, that is any disturbance, and then what we have is our power system. Okay, the output of which is delta Fs. Okay, so this is the complete block diagram representation of an isolated power system. Why we have stated that it is an isolated power system? We are assuming that it is means if there is a change in frequency, that would be affecting the governor. If would means if it would have been connected to a our output, okay. So means if it had been connected to an infinite bus specifically, then the change in the frequency would not have affected the our governor. But since we have considered that the system is of a finite size, then we can say that this is basically a complete block diagram of an isolated power system. Means it is not connected with an infinite bus. Okay, so yes, any questions till now? With this we finish our class today. Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay, I hope not. So in the next class, so let me stop the recording and the presentation. Stopping the